G'day guys, we're standing here in the new PBM HQ and it's time for our first build rundown in the new space. We've got a GR650 here, a bit of a curveball when you're given this bike as a base to build a Scrambler out of. So I'll take you through exactly what we've done as a bit of a walk around. We're going to mess with the format a little bit than what you're used to on our old build bios. So if you like the new way of doing things, let us know. If not, make sure you rip into me and we'll change it right back. So let's get into it. First job on the list for this thing was the front end. When it rolled in here, the forks were toast. The chrome was pitted, the seals were blown, and the springs didn't feel real great either. So after pricing up the repair, it was decided to just bin that whole setup and go with the new USD front end. I got this off a late model BMW 310 GS, a little adventure bike, and we've used the front wheel off the stock GR650 with the spokes, rebuilt it with a nice alloy rim, and then done some brake spacing to make sure the new brakes worked on the old hub. The bonus on top of doing the front end swap, not only do you get a suspension upgrade, you get a braking upgrade as well. These things come with the radial mounted quad pot caliper, so we've got an aftermarket Moto Master rotor on there and spaced it off the hub to suit the setup. So we were able to retain the classic spoked wheels, finish it off with one of our fender and fabrication kits. Those are available on the website, and style this thing out how we wanted it. Also on the lighting for the front end, we've got our LED 7-inch headlight and the Hollowtip indicators used to mount it up. We've gone with like a bit of a weird Jurassic Park style crash cage on this thing. It looks pretty tough, it sort of suits the off-road style. I didn't do it for any other reason than I liked how it looked, so there you go. So on the front end of this thing, we've got a lot of tight and tidy fab work. We've relocated a little ignition switch here. We've got the 40mm speedo mounted there and your dash lights off the side of the tank. That was a request from the rider. I don't know if I'd probably done it like that if it was my bike, but it was something that he really wanted, so I was happy to oblige. We've got the triple clamps painted in the forest green, matching the tank, sort of a little bit of a touch. I think it offsets really well with the gold forks that we've put on. A set of CR Mid Rise Pro Taper bars. Finished with some ODI Vans grips, of course the purpose-built Moto 3-button switches, Akasato levers for the clutch and the brake, and then our little Scrambler mirrors here as well. I'm working on getting these mirrors as a kit that you guys can buy, but for now I've got an article on my website where I show you how we make them. We're going to do a few improvements, make a few things change to make it a little bit more universal, so hopefully we'll have that kit to you guys later in the year. Moving towards the engine, this thing was blowing a heap of smoke when it came in. So the top end was pulled down, new piston and rings, relapped the valves, did a bit of head work, and then we've built a stainless steel exhaust, fitted up a set of Mikuni round slide carburetors, breathing through DNA filters. As the engine was getting rebuilt, we made sure we cleaned this thing up a little bit as well. The GR650 was actually stashed underneath a house in Byron Bay for a good few years before we got it, so you can imagine with the salty air down there just how rough this thing was. Not a super high budget build, so we just cleaned these cases up in the blaster, gave them a bit of a Scotch-Brite. They're not going to be highly polished. Did the same with the cam cover here, and then started building the exhaust. We've got a 2-into-1 stainless steel pipe that passes underneath the case there, underneath the foot peg, and shoots up in the rear, finishing with our 43mm torpedo muffler. The sound in this thing's pretty nice. It's not too loud. I don't really like bikes that hurt your ears when you ride. Call me a pussy, whatever. But yeah, that's what we've done there. The carbs were fitted up onto a set of new intake boots. The kit wasn't specific, it was actually made for an XS650, but with a bit of jetting work, they work really, really well, breathing through those DNA filters, as I said before. Another thing that we had to work into this design was the dude wanted us to make sure he could chuck his girlfriend on the back. They like to go out for hikes and stuff like that, and we're looking forward to using this thing instead of their car to get out there through the forestry trails. So we made a set of removable pillion pegs on the back there, single bolt on each side, pops them off, and you won't really notice that they were ever there. So rounding out the rear of this GR650 Scrambler, we got new chain and sprockets there and a replacement rear shock. So the front end that we put on this thing was pretty much the same height as stock. It lifted at maybe 15 mil, but it wasn't too much to worry about. What we did have to muck around with though was the way that this bike sat. A GR650 is this weird pseudo cruiser, so it used to sit pretty low in the arse. What we had to do was bump the rear up about 25 mil to sort of level that seat out, give you a bit more steep steering angle on the front so it sort of handles a bit more like a Scrambler, and then we put a bigger wheel on the rear too. The GR650 comes out stock with a 16-inch rear. So this thing was stripped, cleaned and rebuilt with an 18-inch rear wheel so we could fit up some a set of Heidenau K60 Scout tyres. So because we had to deal with the pillion setup, the seat was built to accommodate a rider and then the pillion sitting a little bit higher. This allowed us to tuck our pillion pegs up nice and high and out of the way, and it just sort of fit with the style of this bike, I think. So that was trimmed out in a nice matte Napa leather with a few brown accents. So on the tail, the subframe was slightly modified. We've hooped the rear and then fitted up one of our aluminium universal fenders on the tail, welded in a few brackets to house our Orbit LED tail light and the Hollowtip 3-in-1 indicators and brake light on the rear. What I've done with this one is put a splitter through, but I haven't hooked up the running lights on these. So as you're riding down the street, you'll get the glow from the Orbit tail light, but then when you come on the brakes, you'll get all of them lighting up and giving like a really, really strong brake signal. As we were finishing this GR650 up, it started to get a bit of a mean disposition. So we decided to continue that theme with a paint job, finishing it up in a really deep forest green, done in a satin clear. I think it just takes a bit of the edge off having a gloss finish. It's not quite as pretty, but definitely suits the Scrambler styling that we've done with this thing. So I guess whether you're commuting to work or taking your chick out for a ride on the weekend down some nice fire trails, this thing may just be your weapon of choice. I'm going to start it up right now so you can hear how this thing sounds, and then we're going to get out on the road for a GoPro test ride to see how this thing runs. this is the part where your favorite YouTuber is going to ask you to subscribe to their Patreon. Luckily for you, we're not YouTubers. We're bike builders and parts makers. So if you like the content we create and the bikes we build, or you hate both of those things and just want to grab some gear for your next project, make sure you show your support, jump on our online store and give your bike that purpose-built Moto touch. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.